Mind Matters Topic 2. Dear Student, Persist. Dear Student, welcome to the Law School Playbook. I'm Hallie Hara, a professor of academic success and personal skills coach to law students and attorneys. I'm glad you're here. Perhaps you've heard the saying that law school is a marathon and not a sprint. At the heart of that saying is that to navigate law school successfully, you must have resolve, persistence, or staying power. But how do you do that day after day when the workload is so demanding? I did well in law school not because I had a gift or innate talent. Note the fixed mindset in that way of thinking. I did well in law school because I was passionate about it and would not be outworked. My top bar exam score was not because I have a genius level IQ. Incidentally, I have no idea what my IQ is. It is because I was dedicated to the cause and worked incredibly hard to pass it. What I didn't know then, but I do know now, was that there was a label for my approach, and that's grit. In 2016, professor and psychologist Angela Duckworth wrote a book dedicated to the topic named Grit, the Power and Passion of Perseverance. In this episode, I'll highlight the findings and message in that New York Times bestseller. Duckworth explains that grit has two components, passion and perseverance. For our purposes, that means you must have passion for the study of law, or at least for the idea of practicing it, or both. Duckworth explains that passion is crucial because nobody works doggedly on something they don't find intrinsically interesting. So without passion, you're unlikely to be able to persevere. The topic of passion brings to mind a couple of types of students. The first type is a student who came to law school for someone other than themselves. More specifically, this student enrolled in law school not because it was a passion of theirs, but because a parent, spouse, or employer thought it was a good idea. Stated simply, it is next to impossible to have staying power, grit, if you're attending law school for someone other than yourself. Another type of law student I see thought they had a passion for law, but realized that law school and the practice of law is not what they thought it would be. If either of those students is you are in law school without passion. Given the time and monetary commitment that law school requires, it's at least worth the time to pause, reflect, and think deeply about whether you have the intrinsic motivation to proceed. Ask yourself what you are passionate about and determining if pursuing that passion, rather than law, is within reach. The perseverance piece centers on deliberate practice focused on improving specific weaknesses or skills deficiencies. Duckworth explains that people can be coached for deliberate practice, but can also use science to examine the basic requirements, which include having a clearly defined stretch goal, dedicating full concentration and effort, seeking immediate and informative feedback, and engaging in repetition with reflection and refinement. Duckworth's point mirrors the old adage that law school is a marathon and not a sprint because, as she explains, grit is more about stamina than intensity. Because it takes time to be an expert law student or to think like a lawyer, grit is about working diligently over time, embracing the challenge and maintaining the intellectual curiosity to see it through. At this point, you may be asking, how much grit do I have as a law student? Several factors determine your grit. Beyond passion, consider your tolerance for the daily practice demanded by law school. For example, the reading, the studying, the assessments. The greater your tolerance for these type of activities, the grittier you are. Go to Angela Duckworth's website to complete the grit scale, which will give you a grit score based upon your selections. Duckworth's scale focuses on whether new ideas and projects distract you from previous ones, whether setbacks discourage you or you give up easily, whether you often set a goal and then later choose to pursue a different one, whether you are a hard worker, whether you have difficulty maintaining your focus on projects that take more than a few months to complete, whether you finish what you begin, whether your interests change from year to year, whether you are diligent and never give up, whether you have been obsessed with a certain idea or project for a short time but later lost interest, and whether you have overcome setbacks to conquer an important challenge. Duckworth talks about a group of students she calls fragile perfects, which she defines as people who know how to succeed but not how to fail because they haven't met adversity in their lives. To avoid being a fragile perfect depends on your willingness to have a growth mindset and the optimism to believe that you can and will be successful in law school. Like Carol Dweck, Angela Duckworth encourages positive self-talk. She also explains that a cognitive behavioral therapist can help changing negative internal messages. Just as you can grow your mind, you can grow your grit. In essence, Duckworth explains that our society's obsession with talent distracts us from the simple truth that what we accomplish in the marathon of life depends tremendously on our grit, our passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Building your grit will help you achieve more in law school and to have further enjoyment along the way. If you would like to read this episode, get suggestions for further reading, or to request individual coaching with me, please visit my website at www.lawschoolplaybook.com. As always, do your best and I'll be rooting for you.